when you agree to lay your cards on the table, it's not a one-time thing.
Yes.
You have to create a process for always laying all the cards on the table.
Yes.
Sorry, I think there's something I speak from what GR said that's important to note, right? We all have foundations. Like some GR started out by saying the proper people man and all of those things, right? And that's a foundation. I think as we grow, like you see this proper Igbo man got married to the civil engineer, and
Sorry, I'm an engineer too.
Okay.
I mean,
proper Igbo man,
Equal engineer.
What else?
We're talking about me.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
all of those things. All right, good. Right. Got married to this civil engineer and all of that. Why am I going to get married to such a smart, intelligent woman, try to build her and support her to grow so much if I won't benefit anything from it in this life? Like, why would I want to say, okay, I'm going to push and support this woman to the greatest heights? But hey, whatever she has is just for her. I'm just like, it's at the end of the day, it benefits our family.
because in my mind, it was my job and my job alone.
Understandably, right?
Yeah.
But again, right, why can't she just be the most powerful person in this life, and then she just keeps growing and I keep supporting her? And then, no, I'm also growing, by the way, so I didn't say I'm just supporting and sweeping the ground and all of those things. And if she continues to grow like that, it should be of benefit to our family. It should be, we should, when I say all now, I guess our families grow, right? Like we should all have to benefit from it. We should all get to benefit from it. So we have to learn and unlearn some things. Yes, there is absolutely nothing wrong with, JR wants to be the one to bear everything and everything. Well, some people choose to live like that, and that's fine. But again, right, at the end of the day, 1+1 becomes 1. What are the principles that guide?
Oh, but let's
What are
be
the
clear.
principles?
I no longer, so like, I think we are now in the section of our talk where we are meant to actually be sharing strategies and skills.
Yeah.
And the fact is, I no longer, I think that was a bad starting point. I don't think it is healthy. As much as it sounds noble, I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah. So
like,
which
because
comes
you
to
married
learning.
a grown-up person, y'all are grown up together.
Exactly, right. I mean, we have to, at some point, there was a path for you where you had to unlearn some of these things in which you already learned. And, it's a bit, we just have to make that decision at some point, right? Whether you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, at some point, there's always room to learn, to unlearn and learn again. And then maybe you might even need to unlearn some other things at some point,
So we're going to talk about strategies. What are some of the things that you guys do on a weekly, monthly, or annual basis to keep your finances together? Or that's one. So I'm asking two questions. Okay. So or what are some rules? So for instance, you mentioned you said I'm going to have a joint or a separate. So those kind of things. What are some of the things that you've done? Whether it's like it's an ongoing thing or it's like a once and done thing. What are some of these?
So I think let me start with something. So for us, the key overarching principles are the budgeting. So periodic budgeting. So starting with an annual budget and then constantly reviewing it through the year, and then tracking. So spend tracking. I'm not the best at tracking my spend, but this guy is like constantly does track his spend. So those are the two principles that we have overall. And I think it really helps because then you don't go over and you know when you're going over. And sometimes we do, but at least you have an eye on it. And so not, until the end of the year, you're like, okay, what happened? Where did all that money go? So that really helps us to stay on track. The other thing is, which I mentioned, which you talked about just now, is whether we have a joint account or individual accounts. What we decided to do is we both have our individual accounts still for our own individual expenses, but we have a joint account where we put money into for our big expenses. So for the month, the big things where we both need to spend money on, it's in the joint account. For my individual expense, if I have to go get my hair done or whatever I need to do, it's in my individual account. But at each time, we both know what's in those accounts, so that it's not like I have all this money, piled up somewhere doing my own little thing. But we know what's where. And also the joint account is used for things like investments and savings and things like that. So yeah, I don't know if I missed anything.
You didn't, right? I'm going to talk about those one tools, right? For But budgeting, I think, is very important. It's very important, and you, as much as possible, we have to. If you're budgeting for yourself, then you should try to be at least very honest with yourself. It's like, just, I'm not budgeting to show GR and
Right.
gold or
Yeah.
something like that. So I should try to be very honest. So that's some. Um, that's an area that's very important.
So actually, let's break that up. Let's break that open a bit. When you say budgeting, do you mean setting amounts or limits? What do you mean? Let's be very clear. Are you saying you're setting limits for how much you would spend
Okay.
in total in a month, in a week, or are you saying like what are you saying?
So to start with, right, coming to what you started with, you budget and you track, right? Now, when we say budget now, it means we have a spreadsheet that we use, and basically, on the first column to the left, right, it has basic things and in different categories: personal needs, groceries, entertainment, and other categories, right? And the different line items, right? When it comes to personal needs, is there are things around clothes, and going to buy clothes, are we going to um, um, uh, whatever, different line items. So we have all those things listed on the spreadsheet, and then the top row has January to December. Like, what is an average budget that you think you spend on this in January? And everything is just listed in some Excel sheets, right? Of course, at there's the part where you just list what is available, what's actually available, what income, what savings, whatever is available, and then you list that budget, right? And so that's what we use, right? And there are different tools that can be used for this. And when we come to
Sorry, is it tools?
What tools can you
Yeah.
use for this?
Yes.
I'm just saying.
What?
I'm just saying.
He was getting there.
yeah, so we even track expenses and things like that. Yeah, there's something called Reach.
There is.
There's something called Reach
There really is.
that it helps you do this very well. I think it's not just okay to just budget. You also want to know how you're doing versus the budget. So it also helps you. She talked about we set an initial one at the beginning of the year that we come periodically to review, and that's because if you track your expenses, you know, okay, I planned 5K for instance for groceries, but it looks like, hey, in the last 2 months I've been spending 7.5 on groceries.
Yeah.
Like, then it's time to just reforecast
Or,
and just
or maybe you just need to spend more on groceries.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly. So it's you either say, okay, I'm eating too much, or
Exactly.
inflation.
Budget, right?
Things are
Inflation is real.
inflation is real, and things are more expensive. And then you go back to, hey, all right, January, February, this, we match up your grocery budget from 5K to 7.5
And choose something else to go down, or you keep everything else the same.
So it depends, right? In most cases, right, if income, revenue, and some of these things stay flat, it's very important to also look at, okay, what areas can I cut back on, right? What areas can I come back on? And this leads into another thing on having your own rules for what's that portion of this amount of money that is available that should go into what I actually need versus what I want. You have to need groceries. Now that's not a want, right? So when you're thinking about cutbacks, you know these are things that I want, right? Oh, I plan to go to the cinema 4 times in March. Let's try 3 times, or let's try 2 times, or whatever the case is. And honestly, some of these things are really wants. There are other things you could do to engage yourself. You won't die. you really won't die.
Or you can like bundle it and do it like every other month, which is something that we had done.
Exactly, right. So yeah, just an example, I used to cinema. You pick something that you know you can easily cut back on. But first, you have to identify what are my needs versus what are the things I just want. Right. There's nothing wrong with wanting
Of
everything,
course not.
but at least it's easier to cut back on your wants than on your needs.
So, Nicole, what are some of the? I'm going to let you talk about our strategies because I feel like if the neutral-ish party talks about the strategies we use, people will believe her more than they will me. So I'm going to let Nicole tell you what we do, and then I'll chime in if necessary.
Okay. So I'll say in the beginning of our marriage, we put out a really good budget within Reach. So that was that has pretty much been the baseline that we've used to kind of understand how much we're spending on groceries, how much we're spending on different utilities that we need for the house, internet, things like that.
But you're forgetting that we actually did set a budget.
Yeah.
Right. So no, that's tracking. But we set an amount that we can't go past this every month.
Sorry. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so we figured out what that amount was. Once we figured out what that amount was, then we divvied it up into the different categories so that we knew what we were going to be spending. Another thing that I just remember that we actually have done too is when we realized, hey, certain things in a particular category were becoming really expensive, that's when we started figuring out what is another way that we can still get what we need, but at a better price. The example I'm thinking of right now is like internet. Remember in the beginning,
we used to spend too much money.
We spent so much money on internet, which was definitely my fault for all of my streaming.
Netflix and chill.
I was chilling. So, but then we were like, okay, this is not working. This isn't sustainable, and we found a different provider.
But I think more like so. What I mean, because I know you have notes.
Oh, yeah.
So it's things like so we have a spreadsheet where every single account that you have, whether it is an investment account, a current account, like every single thing that has value, whether it's stock options, every single thing that has value or is a debt.
Yes.
Is listed. So as long as it has an implication, because I think one of the things I wanted to make sure is that we can be as open as we want with, hey, I'm spending this on that. But like, if we're not honest about the implication to the other person. So there was a time that, and this was right after we got married, where there were some things that I know that, Nicole was buying. So I was aware she was buying, but I wasn't aware of the terms at which those things were coming in. And it was maybe like 6 months or like a year later, I was like, wait, I'm sorry. So this is the real cost of this thing? So I mean, if you don't know those things up front, so it's very important that yes, you're open, but you're also talking about, so like now, every decision we make, we talk about the implication. Like what do we actually like, yeah, you only have to pay this much up front, but like really, how much is the whole thing? Like, you only have to do this for a time being, for instance, especially with insurance.
Yeah.
I know insurance always tries to be funky with, and like, it's one thing when it was just the two of us, we were living our best, living what we did, then you have a child, and like, we have to have insurance, because if anything happens, I'm gonna feel, so you start paying insurance, and then I was like, we have to ask them, what are they, so that's the thing, like, you have to get really good at asking what are the financial implications, things like deductibles, co-pays, or how much coverage you're gonna get, if something, these are things that you don't want to be surprised about. Another strategy is we never make financial decisions when we are in an emotionally heightened state.
Okay.